Welcome to the Save the Universe podcast, episode number. I forgot already. 35.
35.
How long has it been since I've been on the podcast? Has it been like a month?
Our last group podcast was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Not too
it feels
long.
like a lot longer.
Yeah, that was the one where we talked about Skinner Box for a long ass time.
Oh,
you might have just,
and then went and played Fortnite afterwards.
Yeah, you might have just substituted in your head as just being a Fortnite session.
Yeah, I will admit I don't actually remember the Skinner Box podcast. I just remember
I actually don't remember it
afterwards.
whatsoever.
Well, it's impossible for Wander to distinguish the two because he was playing Fortnite during our Skinner Box podcast, and then we continued to play Fortnite with him after the podcast was over. So from his perspective, there wasn't even a podcast. It was just like 4 hours of Fortnite that night.
That's a lot of Fortnite.
That was a good topic to get out of the way, though. There's lots of discussion of the Skinner Box premise because we just keep bringing it up constantly, and a lot of people don't know it. And there are better sources to find out about it than us, but still, like, it's we got
people
to
have asked.
We keep saying it. We keep
what it
mentioning
relates to and stuff. Yeah. Then last week we did the Spider-Man Homecoming. It was supposed to be a Spider-Man Homecoming podcast, but it mostly just became a Marvel Cinematic Universe spoiler cast because we could not stay on topic for even a moment ever.
They're all
it was
interconnected.
it was amazing.
I was actually gonna say I have the hardest time talking about games that I like in detail because I can't.
You don't want to spoil them?
Well, no, I can't really, like, put my finger on why I like it. Like,
okay.
You know, I was trying to describe why I liked Guild Wars to somebody else. Just like, it's like...
It has an absence of pissing me off.
Yeah, it feels like a community event as opposed to kind of this weird arms race with other people. But, like, you know, trying to put it into words is hard, but with, like, a negative experience, it's super easy to point out, like, bullet lists of everything you didn't like because they stand out to you. It's why negative reviews tend to rise to the top, because they're more, I guess, based
easy to grasp onto.
Oh, yeah.
We have different experiences with Guild Wars.
So we talk about...
It's not an arms race at all. I'm like, oh my god, I need to hit anything. No, this bar isn't filling at all. I'm going to be here for hours.
So we talk about games we've played since you've already brought up Guild Wars 2. Do you want to just, like, go into that? Because I watched, like, a little bit of it, and then that was my exposure to it. So
the new expansion's going to be coming out.
I mean, Guild Wars is... Do you want the, like, plot of Guild Wars, or just, like, how we've been running the series and why it's significant?
The latter. Definitely the latter.
Okay.
I could not give less of a shit about the plot of Guild Wars.
I figured. I was like...
I like the plot of Guild Wars.
The plot is Shell's thing, but so we decided we'd pick up Guild Wars 2 because they've got an expansion coming out soon, and it's free to play, so, like, let's just play it and invite everybody that wants to join us.
And this free-to-play experience immediately cost me $50.
Yeah, it's true. Keith had to buy the expansion back because for some reason he managed to squirrel himself away on a European
they have really
server.
shitty interface design for new players.
Yeah, so
it's free to play though, right?
So here's what happens. If you launch into Guild Wars 2... so I played back at launch, but I couldn't retrieve my account because I couldn't figure out the password for it because it's been 5+ years. And if you try to retrieve the account, it doesn't simply go like, hey, we'll email you a password reset link. They're like, hey, you better type the exact serial code that was on the physical copy you got 5 years ago because you totally keep those for MMOs, right? And don't throw them away immediately because they're never useful. So I couldn't retrieve my account, so I had to make a free account instead. First weird red flag is that... Not immediately red flag, but one thing about being free to play is that it'll constantly tell you in the top left corner that you're not playing a proper thing because there's a big red button saying to upgrade that never goes away. So that was kind of a bummer. But the biggest problem that happened is at the moment you launch into Guild Wars with no context, it just gives you a server list. And I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, server list. I'll just hop into one of these and I'll see if the game runs properly, so we're all ready for the recording that happens later. Little do I know. If you join a server on a free-to-play account, you can never leave it. Ever.
Oh.
You just lock there.
I mean,
forever.
that makes sense because they're trying to save as much money as possible. But
if
also,
you've paid if you've paid for the game, you can hop servers as much as you want, sorta.
Not only does the game not really warn you that you're going to be stuck there forever, it just has a bottom left corner that's like, hey, change realms. That's grayed out and will never not be grayed out. But also, for some reason, the game defaulted me to the European server list.
So
So,
what?
Yeah. So I wasn't in a North American server for some reason. I don't really know why. So that led to a problem where the game has trans server grouping stuff, where if you join a party with your friends from other servers, you can just group anyway, which is a feature that eventually found its way even into WoW, which once it's in WoW, you know that all the other MMOs already did it. That doesn't work cross region. So I couldn't play with any of the people we were planning on playing with. So my choice was to register a new account again for free and start from scratch, or just give up and just buy the actual paid-for version of the game so that I can then just have access to normal features without all the weird limitations that are just really hostile to new players that don't know what they're doing. So I just bought it. Mainly because when I registered the account, probably because of the server load the game has right now for the upcoming expansion and stuff, it took like over 6 hours for them to just give me the confirmation email for my email account. So if I had made a new account, that we wouldn't be playing that night.
So
I would have to wait until the
who's
next
in this
day.
Group?
It was me, Wonder, Shell,
3 of us.
Yeah.
And then like
And
25
more people. You made it sound like there's going to be so much more people.
There was like 20 to 30 of Wander's fans.
Yeah, so
running around with him in a horde.
A bunch of fans showed up and just followed us around, and since we're all in the same guild, you can see where they are on the map. So, like, it looked like Snake, like the old Snake game, the arcade game, where, like, you have...
And they were just, like, trailing you?
They would just trail after me and murder everything in their path, which became a bit of a problem, because I move rather quickly in the game.
You always move quickly.
So, yeah, I always move quickly. So Shell and Keith would end up kind of in the middle of the pack or at the very back. And so by the time they'd arrive, everything was dead because Scorched Earth group just destroys everything.
Which I ended up eating my words before, because during the WoW series, I would compliment Guild Wars for how like it's a nice like community-based game, and everyone's like it feels like everyone's always working together, even though they're like you'll walk in with like completely random people and stuff like that, and like. What I was misremembering is that that's only the events. Like, when it spawns, like, a rare spawn monster, and he's coming and he's gonna mess up that town. Like, when everyone's gonna fight that dude, it just sort of treats them as being a singular party, essentially, and you all automatically are all getting credit just for hitting the dude, basically.
But you have to get a hit in.
Yeah. But the problem is, the normal quests in the game, the ones that are always there, not the events, they don't really work that way. We're just being around the area while it's happening.
Yeah, they're like little static objectives that you're supposed to do, like kill wolves and fight.
It's either interactive objects all over the ground you interact with, like heal this guy or fix this cairn or whatever, or it's kill a bunch of dudes. And to kill a dude, you have to tag them or you don't get credit. And if anybody fixes the thing on the ground, it stays fixed for a while, and you have to wait for it to respawn essentially back into being broken so you can do the objective. So.
Okay. But when you have like 30 people, that doesn't really work so well.
What I quickly realized is that having a giant train chasing Wander around essentially was making me progress more slowly than I would be if I was playing completely alone. Because I couldn't tag any of the enemies, and I couldn't do any of the interactive objects, and every enemy would die so fast I couldn't even get a spell off on them to tag them. So I was literally like in zones devoid of things I could tag or get any progress off of.
The only way I was able to level with my Necromancer was to get Staff. Staff has the longest range, I think, for like casting spells and whatnot. But
so the main reason why this breaks down, like normally this works perfectly. Like there's a couple of issues where it's like, yeah, tagging enemies is really difficult. But the main reason why this is broken down with our, I guess, burgeoning series is because all of these players are specifically sticking around for longer than they need to, and following me and me alone. They're not helping Keith. They're not helping Shell. So instead of having like a kill squad that's helping everybody equally, it's everybody follows me and kills the things that I kill. And so I end up finishing areas like well before they do. And then I'm kind of either sitting around or I don't realize that they're still stuck on it. And they're like, you know, so they're still trying to finish the event off, and I am not. And
it became relatively common for Wander to have finished a heart before we got more than like 25% through it. Like the progress bar. And it also had a side effect, I think, where I was primarily finishing objectives by doing the interact with the thing on the floor option instead of fighting stuff, because I could not tag enemies most of the time, which I think that leads to me having more and more of an experience goal where I'm not getting any kill experience along the way, which means that I actually am weirdly like I have to like one of those fish that attaches to a whale. I have to like suction onto the weird wander horde and tag stuff and get them to kill stuff for me because I'm so underleveled that I can't fight things alone anymore. Because we're just progressing so fast and I'm getting so little experience that's like the game is like somehow like we actually managed to. This was the game that I always referred to as the game that would be more functional than WoW from our co-op experience, and somehow this one's like actually like massively.
You're actively super wrong.
This has turned out to be massively more dysfunctional than our WoW series was ever. Where in that one the only problem was like, oh wow, Wander's experience is going up a little too fast, and now it's like I got a list of new problems now.
The nice part is it seems like the largest problems kind of cropped up on the first session, and they were definitely a problem like most of the way part of the way through the second one. But I've noticed that now that we're not in like a beginner zone where everybody can join us, we have less and less people joining us, and the main reason why it was kind of rough towards the end was just because the rest of that area sucked.
The experience gulf rose dramatically, though.
Yeah, it did. We've got solutions for it, and like honestly, I still think it's a positive experience. But it's fascinating seeing like just how much you can break a game. How it worked
and how it definitely didn't work.
Yeah, because like I really thought it was going to just be everybody piles into a zone, has a good time, and instead it's everybody piles in behind Wander, and the moment he like attacks something, everybody else does. So it just
It's a thing where every single issue all comes from one specific variable, which is that you just don't share party quest progress.
Yeah.
Like in WoW, if your party member kills a dude like 50 feet away and you didn't even tag him, you just got the progress and it's fine because you're in a party. In this game, we're in a party and the game's like, nope, do it yourself. I'm like, why are we in a party? So we can show up on the map with each other? That seems to be the only reason we're in a party, is so it's easier to target each other or find each other on the map, because like the game just doesn't give you shared progress.
I think it's also so that we can go into instances with one another.
Yeah.
That's one reason why you do that, but we haven't gone into any of the personal story instances, so that's part of it.
Yeah, but part of it is we don't want to do that while we have like the murder squad wanting to join us, because then it's like, well, now we got to just fend off everybody saying like, yeah, we're not actually available right now.
We're trying to do the campaign, guys.
There's some really amusing moments where I'd run through an entire dungeon and just like desperately, like I got my fastest spell and I'm trying to just chase any group of enemies I can find and just barely get within casting range to just plunk on the ground really quick just to get one tag on any enemy. And I had to run through a full cave without successfully tagging a single enemy because the murder squad is so vast. I'm like, holy shit.
So
it's like the opposite side. It's like the Langoliers.
On the opposite side, being in the front of the pack as a melee character, I actually have the kind of a similar problem where I can't reach some of the monsters that I'm like running to kill because everybody else has long range that are like right behind me. So I'll like start running at a new enemy to kill, and I'm like mashing my teleport button as fast as I can because like sometimes they just melt before I even reach there. So I'm just like awkwardly leading this pack that kills things for me, and I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but it is weirdly manic during all these because it's an arms race between me and my fan base.
It's like you're Skitter on Greg's shoulders, and Greg just keeps plowing through everything, and you're just like trying to like physically stab things with your tiny little arms.
Yep, absolutely. It's fun though. I don't know. I've always wanted to do this sort of thing with a group of fans. Like I always toyed with the idea of like doing a group Gmod session, but I figured that would be kind of a nightmare, and I think this kind of proved it. Yeah,
I think that Mastorio worked really well because we were barely involved.
Well, yeah, with Mastorio, we didn't give a shit. The entire thing played itself, and we could just kind of commentate. In this case, we have to make progress, so it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, you can't be a passenger on the game train. You actually have to play.
You can't just be, and a lot of MMOs are actually really Let's Play friendly because you can just be along for the ride. It's like, oh, I didn't quite hit enough stuff. It's fine. My experience bar fills up anyway for being around the neighborhood of my teammates. In this game, the game completely hangs you out to dry. If you're in a party with people that wiped out like 50 enemies all around you, it has no effect on any of your experience or anything like that. Yep. I'm like, oh, okay.
I thought maybe if, like, we actually stuck together and it was maybe a smaller group, it would be more manageable.
I think it will get smaller and smaller as we go along, just because I think the novelty. will wear off, and people won't have been playing with us the entire time. So, like, if we're in a level 30 to 40 zone, a lot of people might not actually make it there, or just might not care.
Although there are definitely some people in the group that are, like, level infinity.
Yeah, no, there are a bunch of max level people that have just come back down to help. And that's kind of okay. Like, there are definitely a couple of jumping puzzles that I didn't even know about, and one of the people was like, oh yeah, over here, and over here, and over here. And eventually I had to kind of be like, look, we're kind of just trying to play this. This is, you are going way too fast for even me.
So in session 2, I compensated by trying to make the columnar jointing guild. And had some issues because just nobody knows how to add me or message me because I don't. My name is just some bullshit fantasy name as opposed to I
managed to secure the name Wanderbots. Keith has Garrick's Elenko or something like that, which sounds like straight out of KOTOR, and which would be fine, but it's hard to spell. Whereas I'm just like, add me, I'm Wanderbots. Yeah. Like, it's super easy.
So I tried putting in the description of the stream, but that's about all I can do because, like, I don't think. As far as I can tell in the interface, I don't think your name shows up on the screen in Guild Wars.
No, it doesn't. You have to press really H weird to bring your name up. I think you can turn it on as an option, but yeah.
It's a strange thing just because I'm so used to so many. It's such a standard to have a top left corner health bar that has your name on it in so many MMOs. So I'm like, there's no way for people to identify my name easily, and nobody reads descriptions. So like, I eventually had one follower in my guild, which was just somebody from Wander's Guild that, like, pity switched.
I think if we do have, like, a large mob show up again, I might actually just demand that a couple of them join. Like, we split up into 3 guilds always, and just
keep it balanced.
Yeah, because that way
I could have gone with a recognizable name, but when we were planning this, at no point was it mentioned that there might be a horde of players following us around and that I should have a recognizable name. I thought it was just the 3 of us having little fun adventures talking about bullshit, like the WoW, and it was not the same thing.
Little hamsters talking about bullshit.
Well, because in our WoW series, aside from
little hamsters talking bullshit.
Aside from reading the quest dialogue and whatnot, we were just going from one area to the other, and it was just another podcast, really. And I wouldn't mind if Guild Wars was like that too. Half the time, I'm just like, Wander, where did you go? And like the wave of people was gone, and I was like left to die under the hooves of several centaurs, and it's just
it is. So, for those of you that don't know much about Guild Wars, it is a game that more or less,
there's stuff everywhere.
Yeah, it encourages ADHD. Because, so unlike all other MMOs, Guild Wars does this thing where it's like, okay, so here's your, like, kind of static objective, and it'll always be the same, and you want to finish every single one of them. But there's also, like, bonus objective things that will pop up randomly at kind of all times. And they're good because they pay a little bit better. You know, it's bonus EXP, stuff like that. So if I'm like 20 feet to the right of Keith and Shell, I'll have an event pop up, and I can see it, but they can't because they're too far away. And so I'll be like, oh, hey, there's an event over here. I'm going to go do it. And they might not hear me because, you know, they might be focused or they might be talking or just, you know, we don't always pay attention to each other. That's just how it is. And so I'll follow this event for like 5 minutes and finish like 1 billion objectives and then turn back around and I'm like, where are you guys? And they're like, where are you? And I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm playing the game. It's an interesting problem. I don't know. I think it's also one of those where I've played the game a lot. And so I think poor Keith is kind of getting shafted in terms of like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Like the first session, he was definitely like, so what do my abilities do? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never played a necromancer. And then I run off to go stab things with a sword, being like, I don't know what I do either, but hey, I don't care.
That's because you're playing the new class.
Yeah. It's fun.
Any other interesting points about Guild Wars?
Nope.
You've been playing it a lot, actually.
Well, part of it is
we haven't gotten to the story.
You were gone, and Keith was available on Friday, and
I was gone for one day, and apparently that was a critical inflection point because it launched a series.
You were gone, but Keith was gone like the other day. It's one of those like constant. I mean, this is always an issue with us. It's why we even started playing Dying Light. It's because Keith wasn't always available. So
did you want to be in the Guild Wars series or something?
No. I actually don't want to be in the Guild Wars series at all.
Like, he was specifically planning the Guild Wars series for a while, so he's waiting for a day where you disappear.
Well, is that like Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2 that you're talking about for like a group series?
I would actually like to get all four of us on Guild Wars 1 because it's kind of a wildly different experience.
It's an instanced campaign.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about the open world.
We haven't had a whole lot of luck with playing games like that, though. Like
Guild Wars 1 is also very short.
Yeah.
And it has a really it also has a really amusing trick where you have like, I want to say you have like 6 slots or something, or 8 slots for skills total. Mm-hmm. So you'll keep unlocking more skills, but you still have the same number of slots to put them in, so you have to choose which ones you want to sub in and sub out. But also you unlock the ability to get a second class, and it's not like a weird... Like, these are not hybrid classes where they're like, you get a weird, shittier version of the class, like a Vanguard versus like a Soldier or an Adept in Mass Effect, where it's like, you get to have both kind of, but none of the really cool stuff at the end of either of those specializations if you go pure. Like, no, in this game, you just have both classes. But you still have the same number of slots. So you unlock all the abilities of both classes, and you choose how much you want to lean heavier into one class or the other by deciding which skills of which class you want to slot into your quick bar, because it still is the same limited quick bar. So it gets really interesting.
It's also one of those where it's just a relatively short campaign-based game. Like, Guild Wars 2 is very much an MMO. Guild Wars 1 is like, let's kind of make an MMO in the same way that, like, Diablo 2 was an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
And...
yeah.
When's Divinity Original Sin coming out, though?
Yeah, so that's part of it. Divinity Original Sin comes out in the middle of next month. That is...
I think I'd rather play that.
Very distinctly more going to fit our style better. I'm looking forward to that.
Have we ever clarified that? Did you ever find out whether or not there actually are 4 there are 4 players. But have we ever figured out for sure whether or not it's a 2-player or 4-player story?
It is 4 players. So Bird and I figured that out. I feel kind of super guilty for this, but so back when it was first hitting early access, Stainless, back when we still, hung out with him, he had actually kickstarted the game not even knowing what the game was. He's just like, okay, we need to play this, thinking it was like closer to Diablo or something like that. And so he had kickstarted a 4-pack and then handed it out to Bird and myself, and then launch day comes and we're like, okay, let's play it. And then he realizes, oh, this is a CRPG.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Those games.
Yeah, so he wasn't too interested, and it's
what's CRPG?
God, that is so firmly his fault.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they'd make a distinction for that?
Yes. Yeah. So Baldur's Gate
RPGs feel massively different from other RPGs.
Oh yeah, they're much more Diablo action-y.
No, not the action-y stuff. It's just that it's actually usually like party-based stuff, top-down perspective, pause and play, or turn-based combat. So it's classic
it's like
Baldur's
the
Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights.
Isometric, usually.
Fallout 1 and 2, that stuff.
Yep.
And
so nowadays it's Pillars of Eternity and Divinity Original Sin and Wasteland and stuff like that.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I just don't like MMOs at all, so that's why I'm kind of not too keen on joining Guild Wars 2.
Well, no, that's why I was saying only Guild Wars 1 with you, because it's not, it's actually not an MMO. Like,
just a 4-player co-op RPG.
Yeah, it really is just a 4-player co-op RPG. The MMO part was not
with the cool
really
class system.
Yeah. But so for Divinity Original Sin, just to finish that point, we get in and we realize, oh shit, we have to read probably out loud.
Because we had to read everything as a group.
And admittedly, if we do actually do that series with the 4 of us, we are going to have to do that. But our immediate solution was just to start killing everybody, at which point we found out we very much could not, and then everybody got bored.
Why would you want to kill everyone?
Try getting...
Because bad. Because what would happen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember what happened is that somebody would be talking to somebody, and then we wouldn't realize they were even in a dialogue. So we would be talking to each other, and then everybody else would be talking, or they'd be trying to talk to a quest person, and it was
that's why you have to announce it.
Cluster catastrophe.
So that's what. So we had a similar experience because Wander and I played the first Divinity Original Sin near when our channels were young, like almost 4 years ago. Sorry. We made it for like what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna get some water. All right. So we made it for like one session, and we hit the first town, and it was just a nightmare. We were spreading out. We're trying to like get quests, like we're playing an MMO and stuff like that, and like we had no idea what anything the other one was talking about ever meant. Like we just had no idea what each other were saying throughout the entire adventure. Like, this cat's talking to me. I'm like, I have no idea what you mean. Stuff like that.
My cat?
And so when we came back, and that was the early access version. So when we came back, when it was 1.0 later on, we specifically had ground rules from the beginning about how we're going to handle the entire series if we're going to do it properly this time around and learning from our mistakes, which is that, you walk around as a group together, like unless you're specifically like, I'm gonna do vendor crap for a bit, like we'll like scatter to
whenever we'd hit a town we kind of split up a bunch,
but when you split up in town, you're only doing it to specifically go back to various vendors you already know exist, and only treading old territory, because if you talk to anyone new, it could be weird quest nightmare stuff. And like every time quest would, like if dialogue spontaneously started as part of a quest or something like that, you'd have to like announce it, like I am currently, like I'm talking now and stuff like that. Like we're at a quest now, because we had to be on the same page for everything, or it would be completely lost. Because like otherwise you have the trap of like, oh, by the way, you have to basically solve this puzzle to proceed, and only one of us had any of the details, and the other people are just running in circles like, I don't understand. There's nowhere to go. Which frankly still happened once, where Wander like just straight up solved an entire puzzle and still has never told me how the hell he did it, and I don't know what happened in that part.
I don't even remember this puzzle anymore.
I was mad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm filming a Let's Play too, and I don't know what you did. Can you tell me? But yeah, there's some asymmetrical problems that come up in that stuff that you have to really work together with, or the series will just completely fall apart. And hopefully we can.
I'm stuck trying to remember that solution.
It was when we were inside. It was near the end of the game. We were inside of a weird building, and we were teleporting around inside the building. And there's like a weird nightmare, because it was literally a nightmare, because we were fighting a nightmare monster. And you just solved the puzzle all of a sudden, and I had no idea what you had done or where you were going. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, there were 500 million switches, and you just had to figure out which one corresponded with the exit. And I just found it, and I was just like, flip that switch.
And what frustratingly, I think I was sitting there trying to solve the puzzle, and he might have just pressed random buttons and then left. And I'm like,
yeah. Well, so actually, perfect analog was when you and Shell were stuck on the Great puzzle in Grave of Man, and Greg was just like, yeah, flip that one, flip that one, flip that one, and he just flips down the river. It's the same thing.
We wanted to find a way to get all of us across.
Greg did not solve the puzzle.
It's true.
Getting one person through the hallway is not solving the puzzle.
It's
literally impossible to do that for everyone, unless you want to leave Skitter behind forever.
No, it got me through the puzzle.
So
yeah,
actually,
it deleted you from the scene so we could think about it more.
To change topics,
great.
To change topics, seeing as we're kind of in between Grave of Man seasons right now.
Oh yeah, you're doing all the art.
That puzzle actually existed to either challenge you guys on whether or not you were going to like go out of your way to keep Skitter around, abandon him, or send somebody else and like leave somebody else behind instead of Skitter, and then the consequences there. And like I actually kind of put that together with the expectation that you were going to just accept that somebody was going to get left behind. And I want to see what would happen.
But then Bird was the only person that did what you wanted.
And then you guys blew it up, which is totally acceptable too. But
were you originally going to let us blow it up, or were you just exasperated at that point?
You guys don't use magical items at all. Like Bird had a bag of infinite rocks. He bought
what are rocks used for?
Tons of things. Distracting people. They do decent damage if you need a ranged weapon. You can use them you can make difficult terrain if you just spread it all over the gun. There's a billion things you could do if you want to think creatively.
My character has instead largely gone around.
I don't want to think creatively.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, Dimitri might. Greg certainly thinking creatively was not his strong suit.
Keith
thinking anything
lizard nudist with lots of money.
But your spell casting was kind of the equivalent of what I wanted everybody else to do with their items, and for the most part, it's just been like, well, what do you do? I'm like, just use the infinite bag of rocks and the like goggles of alternate perspective so you can scout ahead and stuff like that. Nope, I'm gonna walk out into the courtyard. By the way, there's like a shit ton of guards in there. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Oh.
I would actually
use a lot of my items.
I would actually I have a table of what you guys had. I've since erased it because I don't know what anybody has anymore. But I'd actually roll
fulfilling its intention.
I would roll on the table and be like, okay, so here's a puzzle that I'm going to design around these items, and let's see if they do that or find something else. And the answer is you've never ever done a single puzzle with the items. That's part of the reason why I deleted the table, because I was just like, well, I give up. Good luck, guys.
I don't think I've ever had puzzle items.
No, you just have the monster manual and the Air Jordans.
One of which is doesn't even have a clear result. And the other one is a thing that seems to not usually help. The Air Jordans is a weird item because it's an item where I don't even know what effect it has on my character, so I don't know what...
You never had anybody identify it. You've just been wearing Air Jordans.
Skitter can identify things.
To be fair, as a player that's not used to playing D&D 5e and stuff like that, no, identify was never explained as a mechanic. So when I got Air Jordans at the beginning of the playthrough, you were just like, I don't know, you feel a little faster. I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. And there I had no tools with which to proceed because I didn't know that identify. I don't know to go talk to Deckard Cain and be like, can you identify this stuff?
Wait! I totally missed this. We have. How does identify work?
See, we played for 40 hours so far.
Identify just tells you what a magical item does.
It does?
Yes.
Is that just a skill that we all have?
It's a magical spell. It's a level 1 ritual. It takes a minute or something.
It's a spell he silently gave to Skitter, and
I announced it very much. I'm like, I'm having him go Arcane Trickster so you guys can actually identify the magical shit, so maybe you'll use it.
But even that was 3 weeks or 4 weeks after I got the Air Jordans.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you got the Air Jordans about the same session as Skitter, and I thought Skitter was going to get killed off.
Yeah.
Numerous times.
I've never had the game knowledge to know I could even do anything about
Skitter.
the Air Jordans besides just go with the vague suggestion you're wearing shoes that maybe make you go faster.
He thought Skitter was going to get killed off.
I thought you guys were going to kill Skitter.
Now he's the mascot.
He became the most powerful character in our entire party by far.
For almost this entire playthrough, he's at a higher armor class than Greg.
But that's because
that's not hard.
Drez successfully killed the assassin.
Yeah.
Because the assassin probably had much higher armor.
Much higher armor that wasn't specialized for anyone besides maybe Skitter. It's been a strange playthrough.
It has been a strange playthrough. It's fun. Unfortunately, it's making writing the next section harder because I'm like, okay.
Well, and you're doing all the full body vectors and
it looks so much nicer right now.
It does look really, really nice.
I bet it looks cool, but you're basically making a video game.
He is.
Well, I'm making a video game if the video game is a game where you just... if the game's tabletop simulator.
Yeah.
Where you just drag the items around.
Right. True.
Part of it is
assets.
I just haven't been able to do a whole lot of artwork lately. I was trained for it. It's Bird, how much music do you make anymore?
I mean, not very much.
4.
Yeah.
4 music.
And so,
not very much at all.
I spent a couple of years really focusing on my YouTube channel and completely ignoring my art. And so suddenly I'm given this opportunity to start doing artwork again. And I'm like, okay, so the top down kind of works, but it's ugly. And if I just do a little bit more work, the dungeons will look hella sweet. The problem is the characters are going to be kind of a lot of extra work.
I think you need to change that shirt color. It's the same color as his arms, practically.
Yes.
It's going to be harder for you to just draw a circle and put eyes on it and call that a character.
like the table.
Now you've made yourself work.
What I'm going to do is what I've already done is I actually have a generic guy with a sword and full plate armor.
Oh no, he's going to Control-Alt-Delete it. Everyone's going to have : uppercase U face.
Well, what I'm going to do is I've just got kind of a generic armored guy, and I'm going to have like a generic medium armor guy and a generic light armor guy. You should have a
generic goblin and generic.
Well, yeah, so I'm going to have generics. I've already got a couple of recolors with like minor differences
Ogre
to save some time. But like effectively, say I introduce a new character that I don't have time to do the full body for, he'll just have generic armor, at least until I give him like the rest of the suit and stuff like that, which is.
And recoloring is easy enough.
Oh yeah, recoloring is crazy easy and fun. Like, I don't know. Here, I'll send you guys one right now.
He's making genies.
Yeah, you guys are going to be up against genies.
Oh, genies! I thought they said jeans. Yeah. I'm like, I know someone who painted some jeans.
Yeah, you did. Look, I took inspiration. You guys are gonna find the room full of animated objects
with jeans on them fighting us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Vectorize my old DeviantArt bullshit. That could be a dream sequence.
You jest, but if you guys ever have to,
that could be like an inside joke dream sequence nightmare thing that we have to fight through.
If you guys ever annoy me enough, that may come to pass. All right, let's see if I can pull this up so you guys can see it. Isometric icons.
I can always just turn over to look at Ladybird's monitor.
Well, I'm actually unable to stream this right now. For whatever reason, OBS's latest patch, if you have two versions of OBS running at the same time, it just poops itself if you're trying to stream.
So he's doing the podcast.
It's in...
never
we put it in Zogzog.
I put it in Zogzog. That's
okay. It's at the end of the world.
No, it is the end of the world.
Where the hell is it?
I deleted it immediately. There you guys go.
Oh, okay.
There's a pair of... that white outline. There's a pair of dudes for you. I guess. How do I put this anywhere? Copy link.
If you want to figure out how to link it to somebody, you already put it in Discord, so you can click on the Discord and click on the open original link that shows up when you click on it in Discord, and then you can link that.
Those are huge, though. Why would you?
That's because they're 300p. It doesn't matter.
I mean, yeah, so just they actually technically have no scale associated with that.
That's also true, but it's just easier to draw on a higher resolution.
Oh yeah,
than a smaller one.
I mean, for painting, I have to do that, or else I'll never be able to make full-size prints of my pieces.
Yeah, but also just doing the details is harder the smaller you make the files, because then you hit the pixel limit of like, that's just how big the squares are that make the picture.
Yep.
Looks like crap now.
But so
I always post low res online though, like make sure nothing's over.
That's a good copyright save.
Yep. Dude. But so effectively, I've got Genie 1, Genie 2. Kind of base, switch the head, switch the weapon. Close enough.
Fingers.
Nope.
We're gonna walk into a chamber and it's just gonna be Ornstein and Smog.
I mean, the thing is, like, you guys are gonna be seeing these guys at like maybe a 10th of that, if not more. Like
that's true. They have to.
The inclusion of fingers is not something I really give a dang doodly about. Because hands slow me down the most. I'd say like
hands.
I'd say like the whole thing took me about an hour and a half to finish. If I'd actually like wanted to have nice looking articulate hands, it would have taken like a lot more, and I just don't want to deal with that.
It's part of the reason why anytime I have like, if I'm designing a race that isn't just like another version of a humanoid, I always have them with like 4 fingers or 3 fingers. It just makes things easier.
Someone just said, I will give you $500 if you play Vanquish and Resident Evil 4. I think you're lying.
Oh, what?
Money up front, then we'll do it.
Yeah, money up front.
Yeah, really.
Somehow I don't believe you. Those kinds of comments are great, though. Oh.
Right. Anything else you want to talk about for D&D?
Not much for D&D, especially since I'm not really in any hurry to spoil anything.
Yeah,
exactly. That's part of it. I don't want to spoil anything.
Go watch our D&D series. It's time to catch up because we're between seasons. Although it would have been better to start 2 weeks ago when the between seasons thing started, as opposed to now when we're probably going to start in a week.
Maybe.
I thought I was going to have everything done by tonight, and I'm just like, wait a second. No, I've got too many new games coming out. I can't manage.
I didn't think you would.
No,
the amount I've seen you streaming Guild Wars alone, I'm like, we're not playing D&D this week.
once again, he's doing the thing where he starts to perseverate on a game, play it on his own time, and then he's like, I'm going to get this ability and this ability and this ability. I'm like, but then you're definitely going to outshine us.
Like, a little bit to get a game out of my system, and then I move on.
We came back for the second session, and you suddenly had gliders.
I mean, admittedly, I had a glider
now. I'm
too.
Like, great.
Hey, for whatever it's worth,
he made it 0 gaps between sessions before starting to get shit.
I've never done that to you, Keith. For whatever it's worth,
we've never played games together one-on-one.
Yeah, we did once.
Except we were here, which was a single session game.
Yeah,
oh wait, didn't you guys?
And it was great. We destroyed it. We're good teamwork people. At some point recently in chat, we're talking about a game that I should play with you for teamwork. Oh yeah. Right, we were talking about the idea that if my Patreon people keep wanting to play every Myst game, then I might as well hook up with Bird to play Uru. Because it's the multiplayer Myst game.
There's a multiplayer.
And I don't think either of us have played it.
I thought that they disbanded it and rebanded it and disbanded it.
There's a fan site for it.
Yeah, it has some sort of modern audience, that community that still like meets up in a cave and tells stories. The internet's weird.
Yeah, because that was when Myst Uru was going to have its online series, and there's like a whole second section of books in your Relta bookshelf that are just empty, and I just stare at them longingly, going, "What may have been?" Like, because they were gonna add extra ages every
it was
year,
supposed to be every
couple
couple
months
of
or something.
There was supposed to be a new age, and then I think they never made a single one.
They actually made 2 or 3, but I think it was only available for like a very short period of time to the people that played the online version. My parents wouldn't let me play online with anyone anyway, so I pretty much only had the single player experience, like the complete series pack.
Hey, Wander.
Yeah?
You and Shell should play the non-other games.
The what?
Yeah, maybe.
999
we have the hardest time.
Zero Escape and whatnot.
Oh, those?
Just fucking do it. Because we could have some conversations about it.
They'd be good. The main problem is, like, we just have the hardest time syncing our schedules up to even record Pyre at this point.
Your audience likes anime talking things.
Sorta.
Where anime characters talk a lot.
So, on that topic, I'm still playing Persona 5, and I'm kind of floored that people are sticking around as much as they have. Because, like, usually with games, like, by the time you hit episode 50, people are really starting to flag on it, unless, like, I really have a commanding lead on the game. And, like, Persona has never been, like, particularly high views, but it's just been, like, kind of middling the entire time. And I'm just like, this is, like, flying against a lot of my expectations of long series. But it's also torturous because I think I'm at the halfway point and I'm at 90 episodes.
How long do BioWare series typically run if people aren't super completionist?
You can probably knock out if you're not completionist, you can probably knock out a BioWare game in 30, 40 hours.
That varies greatly depending on whether you're talking about Mass Effect or Dragon Age, which is pretty much the binary split down the middle. Because Mass Effect games are like 10 to 20 hours long, and Dragon Age games can be like 50 hours long. Like my Dragon Age, like my Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 playthroughs, I was doing hour-long episodes, and the first 2 were about 20 episodes long, and the third one was about 30 episodes long. But then Dragon Age Inquisition is almost 200 episodes long on my channel, and actually nowadays they homogenized them now. So like they used to be a big split between the two. Like Origins is a huge game, for example. Like it's just known for being a long BioWare game, whereas the Mass Effect games are known for being quick, short games. Like I beat Mass Effect 1 in 5 hours once, because you can if you just play the main story. But nowadays they have this open world hub thing where it's like, here's a bunch of random zones you can go to do miscellaneous crap, and like most of the zones actually have no bearing on the story of any kind. They just exist to do random side quests in, like an MMO. Like, that's unfortunately how BioWare makes their games now. So as a result, Inquisition and Andromeda have bridged the gap, and instead of being a Dragon Age game or a Mass Effect game, they're this new form of, like, BioWare semi-MMORPG design game, and those games are long. Those games are quite long.
I think I would find the new breed of BioWare games to actually be totally like tolerable if I could play like co-op with somebody else.
Which is what they're doing next.
Like, yeah, if
that's what they're making.
Was that a new
game? Anthem almost looks like they're just stealing Destiny and trying to put their own spin on it. Whereas, like, if I could have played like Mass Effect Andromeda or Dragon Age Inquisition with like you guys the entire way through, I think I actually would have liked both games. Like, yeah, I would have still pointed out the like writing inconsistencies and some issues, but it's like
probably not actually. Because we would just be talking about random bullshit the entire time and barely keeping track of what's happening in the story, and all the stuff would fly over our heads like it does in all the other multiplayer games.
That's true.
It's when you have nothing else to focus on, like I did, that you just like become laser targeted on all the weird problems, and you just cannot let the phrase "Geth telescope" you can't let that slip by without being like, wait a minute, you just pulled some bullshit just now, and we're only in like episode 4, and I'm about to do 129 of these.
I wonder, I think it took me 30 hours to play the original Knights of the Old Republic. Maybe? I'm trying to think what those games are typically done as, since they're older.
I know what to do. We can do science right now. I'm typing Mass Effect, and I'm typing Dragon Age, and I'm typing Knights of the Old Republic. I misspelled that several times. All right, so KOTOR 1 and 2 are both, if you do main story on its own, they're 30 hours. If you do completionist stuff along the way, they become 40 to 50 hours. Mass Effect 1 and 2 and 3 are 17 to 24 hours long for the main story, while having 30 to 35 hours for the side story. But Mass Effect Andromeda has one of the shortest main stories of only being 20 hours, but the main story. But if you do completionist, it's 90 hours.
Which is probably mostly grind.
Yeah.
And here's where it rears its head is the freaking Dragon Age Origins Ultimate Edition. The main story, as in like just the bare bones playthrough, is 50 plus hours. Just for playing the main story and not doing the side quest stuff that takes up to 100 hours. So there's a gulf between the different trilogies and whatnot. Oh no, I said trilogies. Now I'm sad there's no third KOTOR. Because they made an MMO instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aww. Also, amusingly, if you look at on this website, it says that Old Republic has a 15-hour campaign. That's an MMO, and it's saying that its campaign is 15 hours long, which is half as long as either of the actual single-player games. I don't know what that number's based on, but that's a weird listing.
I'm gonna link this for you.
Oh, goody.
This is the how long to beat for Persona 5.
93 and a half hours for just the main story, 160 hours for completionist.
Yeah. It's
wow.
If you took 160 hours, it would be a full year playthrough.
Yeah.
I didn't have that many parts in my Zelda playthrough, and it was long.
So the
what
main
makes
issue,
it so long? What drags it out, dude?
They're big games.
Yeah, it's literally like there's almost no recycled content. It is like a turn-based JRPG, so the battles are slower than like a lot of other games where you can just hack and slash your way through.
Recycled content. Just because of the part where like the game takes place over the course of a year of your in-game schedule. So like you choose what to do each day, and for entire chunks of the story for like weeks at a time, the current dungeon is like one dungeon you're progressing through. So you can potentially be replaying chunks of it and stuff like that while you're going. That was a huge problem in like 4 though, is that you were literally playing the same dungeon.
Yeah, so now they've got specifically designed dungeons, and I actually don't even grind through them. Early on in the game, I just was like, I'm just gonna turn this on easy and do no grinding. Unless, like, I really want something, or, like, I'm really falling behind here. And for the most part, it just means I do the dungeon once, and then I leave, and then I trigger the, like, the thing that makes the final boss show up. And then I go back in the dungeon, I beat the final boss, rinse, repeat. The thing is, like, each dungeon takes,
Did I get it?
There was a fly, apparently it landed on my back, so she'll slapped my back and then started grinding it into my back. And I'm like, I don't want fly guts in my shirt. I guess I do now.
It was a big one.
But so...
I just don't know if I got
So, like, each dungeon takes upwards of, like, 6 hours maybe sometimes. With, like, cutscenes and, like, minor bits. Because you have to, like, kind of... They have to introduce the villain. They have to, like... make him seem more evil. You have to introduce a new cast member who has like this change of heart and joins the party and all sorts of stuff.
I like
so
the phrasing of make him seem more evil.
They always do that though. Like,
gotta add in some more backstory of him like burning down an orphanage.
It's like Inquisition. Introduce Corypheus. Now Corypheus is killing your whole base. And it's like the stakes are raised.
They totally do that though. Like, they love to raise the stakes midway through, so you're like extra invested, and it's actually like a really well made game. The other reason why it's so slow is because outside of the whole like dungeoneering thing, what you're doing is going through the main character's day-to-day life, and really you get
forging relationships.
Yeah, so you get
the
two
final
actions
boss
that
is the friendships you make along the way.
Possibly, I don't know. It could pull a full like Final Fantasy X on me. I've never played or beaten a Persona game. Just watched.
That's just what I've heard people.
Anime.
This is what I've heard people describe about playing Persona 5. Is just that like at some point you get the loop of defeating dungeons becomes so manageable that you're actually just trying to beat the dungeons as fast as possible to maximize how much of your calendar can be dedicated to making friends.
That's exact. I partway through the first chapter, effectively, one of my fans sent me a guide, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, you might want to follow this just to min-max like some of your pathway through here." And I look at it, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm pretty close to this, so I might as well just follow it." And it's like, beat the first dungeon on day 1, and I'm like, I took 3 days for this and got my ass kicked. How did you manage this, you psycho bastard? And so I overgrinded that dungeon so that future dungeons I can do that. But
that's the terrifying thing about Persona 5 is that, or Persona games in general, is that like people put this gargantuan amount of time in to beat it once, and then like a common trait is for people to then start the game over so they can now maximize their route to get the best possible outcome of everything they did along the way. But I'm like, dear Lord, that's like beating an MMO twice. Like,
yeah, I've had several people
so deep down.
I've had several people ask me to New Game Plus my run because there's bonus bosses and you get to carry over your stats and stuff like that. And I'm
that's
like,
another apparently 70 hours,
no.
Wander. You want to do it?
You do you, man. Like,
hey,
I won't begrudge anyone that, but no.
I love that you. It's 160 hours on average. Apparently, if you take a leisurely stroll through Persona and completionist it takes 282 hours.
Holy shit, that is
for people that take their time as opposed to like constantly going, gotta go, fast,
yeah.
light that fire.
Gotta go fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's like your game that's like all you need until the next Persona comes out.
Yeah.
It's just the previous Persona.
How long is that in days?
How much time do you think people have spent on Persona 4 considering that they made 2 of them?
That's like 12 days.
Yeah, you'd spend about 2 weeks playing this straight.
Think about it.
If you want to sleep a little bit.
Think about the people that probably beat Persona 4 once, and then beat it on New Game Plus, and then Golden came out and they did both again.
Yep. I was telling
somebody
Bird,
in my chat says, reminds me why I never got to finishing the game.
Yeah.
Because you're a normal human being.
Yeah, and the game just keeps going and going and going and going.
I know.
I will give it credit, though, for being quite possibly one of the longest games I've ever played. I'm still emotionally invested in like everything that's happening 90 episodes in. Like, I'm actually...
That's what's cool about it, is that it's like constant writing is showing up. Like, it's not just like, here's some dungeons and a bunch of silence. It's like, no, we wrote story for this long-ass game, and it's still going. It's still going.
Yeah. And I think a story like that is the only reason why I would ever play a game that long. I would almost think that my ideal length for a game is probably hovering around the 20-hour mark, maybe less. Like, it's nice to have the brevity of a 10-hour game, but when you start getting into 30 and 40 hours, it seems a bit long for me.
I like a game that sits somewhere between... Hey, so my upper limit is about 70 hours. That's like Final Fantasy VII length.
Yeah.
And anything more than that, I really don't have a whole lot of investment in. But I like my games to, at the bare minimum, be about 20 to 30 hours. Usually 40 is good for me.
I don't think I can make a general claim. It's just that, like, whatever the game is works better at different lengths. Like, I'll come away from a game like Alien Isolation or Perception and be like, it probably could have been a bit shorter, honestly, or Rime, as we talked about before. I'm like, this is probably a little long for what it was going for. But then other games where I'm like, like every game made by Supergiant Games is usually a game where I'm like, this idea needs more campaign. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like especially Transistor, I'm like, this is way too complicated for like a 4.5-hour game. It's a super complicated skill system with so much progression. And I'm like, but I'm gonna beat it in like half an afternoon, so like it's almost like it's wasted. But I don't necessarily want to play the game like 5 times over to fully experience its depth.
Pyre seems to be going a bit longer than the previous games, but that's only because you're cycling back through the trials and then having more dialogue with your companions. I had a feeling Pyre
was going to be long when I realized that it doesn't have voiced dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, this is a company known for being fully voiced and having this constant, usually Logan Cunningham voice acting in the background. And this game, it's dead silent, aside from a little bit of Simlish. Like, it'll like imply voices by making gibberish sounds, and that's it.
I mean, personally, I actually prefer that. I was a little bit worried that it was going to be fully voice acted going in, and when somebody told me, I was like, thank God, because if it was fully voice acted, I guess it would be a lot easier to get through. But at the same time,
accompanying him, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like it when cutscenes are fully voiced, just because it means as a player, I don't need to stumble over. As a player presenting to an audience, I don't have to stumble over all the made up words.
I guess for me, playing with Shell specifically, I like voice acting because then I don't have to worry about voice acting every character. I get a break. Sometimes I get a whole episode break, depending on the games.
Like that one Night in the Woods episode, or several where I was just like
break.
B and May just talking back and forth.
One of the interesting problems I'm actually running into with Pyre is I actually resent the gameplay because it breaks up the storytelling and stuff and the characters. And I'm like, I mean, it's fun and all, but it's so stressful because like, I don't want to lose on like certain things. And like, I don't want to have to deal with...
The gameplay is a crux of it because it's where it's decided who wins and who loses, and the story branches based on that. It's like all that hype, all that pregame of like it's like watching like wrestling and stuff like that. Like those ideas, like all the background drama that's all hinging on this match, and then the match can actually be decided one way or another, and you have to deal with like that outcome.
I guess it just kind of feels like Shadow. You know how like in Shadow Colossus, it's effectively just a giant boss rush, or like Titan Souls. For both of them, you've got these, sometimes lengthy-ish sections between the next boss fight as you like explore the world, but for the most part you have to progress by killing these bosses. It's like if you were playing Shadow of the Colossus or Titan Souls, and if you fuck up and lose, it tells you like, by the way, like you can't refight that Titan, that Colossus. You have to just deal with the consequences of that. And for me, that is like actually kind of nightmarish, because generally like an episode is like 20 to 30 minutes of us talking and then 5 minutes of like a match, and it's just like, I'm not prepared for any of these. I guess I could do practice matches right before, but it's so it's so rare that like I'm always rusty no matter how much we play in a session. I'm just like, I'm not ready for this, and it's stressful. It's super stressful. It is stressful,
but the hype is so hype. Like,
it is. Yeah,
it is so cool when like people are like making bets about the outcome of the fight that's going to affect like their futures and crap like that, or like this person's freedom is on the line, and you've learned learned who they are and talked with them over the course of the entire game, and now it's up to you to win this match to see if they go free or not. Otherwise, some guy you've never met before goes free, and he's probably kind of a dick. And then
it's the snake lady who literally worships Cthulhu, and you're like, that she definitely can't win.
And one of the coolest things the game does is that as you are playing a match, based on how well the match is going, midway through the match, it does dialogue that's reflecting on how well the match is doing, which is like it might be like your team like being all triumphant, like, oh yeah, we're doing this, or the other team like bragging about how they're stomping you so far, or they're talking shit because they're losing or something like that, and like that just further hypes up the stakes mid-match as things go, and you're like counting down the points, like, oh shit, can I do this or not? Because like I had one where like Ruki's family was essentially on the line in a way, and I'm like, fuck, and like I thought I was going to lose a few times.
So
it was great.
One of the neat things is also it changes some of the dialogue based on how well you did on the previous battle. So if you have like no time beating them, the characters will actually kind of react to that. And I was like, that's That's a weird thing that I'm not used to.
Oh yeah, the announcer actually takes cues on whether or not you succeeded or failed or...
It's definitely the coolest experiment this company's made.
Yes.
I've never seen this before in a game.
I think that's always going to be true of anything.
NBA Jam.
anything that Supergiant makes and anything that... Don't Starve. Clay. Anything that those two companies make, I think will always be... unique and interesting, and I'll always look forward to them, even if I don't know if I actually like playing them. Sometimes because it's just something new and interesting, and like refreshingly so. And they don't stick around for too long either, which is super nice.
Go away before I get bored of you.
Well, like, we played Regalia of Men and Monarchs, which was kind of a nice combination of, like, Final Fantasy Tactics and Persona.
Yeah.
And it took 56 episodes to beat, which was fine, but by the end of it, especially because the game had a save glitch where every time you saved, it would make the next save take longer. So by the end of it, like, I'd just click on the menu and it would just grind.
You couldn't erase your old saves. Usually a game cycles out old saves, but...
Yeah. And so I had, like, a couple hundred saves just because you're constantly having to make decisions and, like, micromanage whether or not you made a good choice or not. But so by the end of it, the game just slowed to a crawl to the point where the final battle was like 15 frames a second or something. And by the end of it, I was just like, I'm so ready to be done with this game. I just don't want to be playing it anymore. Whereas, like, I don't know, there's something certainly refreshing about a single player experience, or like multiplayer stuff like EDF. I can kind of get behind being hella long just because, whatever. If it's too short, it'll just feel disappointing and like a waste. But with single player,
you just want an excuse to keep going.
Yeah, kind of. Whereas, like, I beat Sundered yesterday. And it took me a grand total of 17 episodes.
I was so anxious because I was trying to edit videos and stuff, and I was just hearing him screaming and making noises, and I was just like, this is distressing. It's making me
How far have you gotten in Sundered, Keith?
Not that far.
Okay.
Apparently everyone's beating this game faster than me.
I did some grinding, and it, like, seriously made...
Well, yeah.
It is...
We haven't talked about that yet on here, which is that, because we talked about it a little bit during EDF of all places, was that, like, the weird thing about Sundered is that its skill tree is secretly the actual progression of the game.
Yeah.
So if you get a bunch of experience, then you can just beat the game, because, like, the game is less about Twitch responses.
Is there, like, a skill that you, like, open up that just says, like, win the game? Or
so do you remember... You well, kind of. Do you remember, I guess, the skill grid in Final Fantasy X? Imagine if you grinded hard enough, you could actually max that out for a character.
I don't think you could in Final Fantasy X.
You could? Okay.
Yep.
Imagine if it didn't actually take that much effort.
It also didn't take that much effort in Final Fantasy X.
It took time. I don't know. It only took me a couple hours to grind up 300,000 shards. I more or less stood in a corner and just stabbed things to death as they infinitely threw themselves at me. Came away with like 2,000-3,000.
How can you do that?
I was watching... I was just watching podcasts. I had nothing better to do while I was rendering videos.
For background, for people, Sundered is like one of those games it's vaguely like Rogue Legacy, where it's like a procedurally generated, side-scrolling Metroidvania type game where you have to go take out some bosses and get some skills and stuff like that. But when you kill stuff or loot stuff and stuff, you get a constant increase to your currency, and that currency does persist after deaths infinitely, and so you're spending those on this giant, like, Path of Exile looking like passives tree, basically, that makes your character more powerful, have a longer health bar, and so on. And, like, the thing about the game is that it's so exponential in its progression. Like, as you go on, like, you'll be like, oh, here's every node will give me 15 more hit points. But then eventually, like, here's 33% more hit points. It's like, oh, that's a gargantuan boost to not only all the upgrades I've done so far, but all the ones I ever will do in the future. Like, so it gets exponential like that. And the enemies keep and so what happens is the enemies get exponentially harder every time you go into an area and drop exponentially more loot to increase that bar more and stuff like that. So what quickly becomes apparent is that for the core gameplay, where you're fighting like hordes of people, your victories are more determined by your stats than your actual gameplay. because the game looks like Symphony of the Night, where you're like side-scrolling and hitting some dudes that come after you, but instead of being like Symphony of the Night, where it's like, oh, that's an axe armor, you jump over the axe and duck under the axe, and you put your whipped attacks in between his attacks, and you're trying to then like not get hit and play smart and everything. This game is instead like, here's 50 enemies at once all over the screen that are just swarming your exact location right now and obliterating everything. So it quickly turns into like more like Diablo 2 and 3, where it's like, oh, I'm winning because I have life leech and I have this much stats, and the horde of people hitting me doesn't matter because I'm just hitting the attack button a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's the average experience in this game.
So I got an upgrade that made it so every time I killed an enemy, I get 10% of my shield bar back, which was like kind of instant win whenever I had to deal with groups of enemies. But it's super bizarre because you will be like going through levels and it'll be totally like dead. There will be no enemies there. Yeah. And then like a gong starts ringing, or a bell. A bell
all
starts
three
ringing.
Regions have a different background sound that signifies that the horde's coming now. In the first zone, it's basically just straight up an alarm.
Yeah. And then just you get ganked by like everything. And so like, especially early on in the game before you've gotten any upgrades, you more or less die because you just get so totally overwhelmed. And by the end of the game, if you've gotten enough like upgrades, you just cut through them and they're nothing to you.
In fact, by the time you finish a zone, when you're leaving the zone and getting ready to go to the next zone, you're like, every time guys attack me, I'm just like one-shotting them, basically. Yep. And when you started the zone, they were like insurmountable. So it's like, the game is less about your actual gameplay and more about just how long you've been playing so far. Because buying the skills just has such a gargantuan effect on things. And there's, like, some of the skills are huge, too. Like, one of them lets you hit projectiles.
Yeah,
like,
that was the game changer for me. Because there was a boss that was kicking my ass. And so I was like, oh shit, there's this. If I get that, he's easy. I got it, and then it was super easy.
Like, this is a game that gives you very few actual tactical choices, because your main way of attacking is just to button mash the X button, which is just doing a 4-hit combo over and over and over again. And you eventually unlock a cannon where you can fire one shot that's like a Mega Buster, like boom, explosion, but has limited ammo of like 5 shots. So you're mostly just button mashing one button nonstop for the entire game.
You do actually get some like more combos later, and you do get
you get like a power attack. You get like a slight variation, which is you can do a charge attack sometimes.
There's a secret. I found at least one secret combo thing that you can do where it's a roll and then a stab. So you do this like cool charge attack, but that's like hidden at the very end of the game, and I found it just because there's like a hidden section of the map that I had never been to before in the first zone, and I was just like, wait, how long has this been there? And I like get over there, and it's just like instant. It was like one of the largest areas of the game, constant alarms, and you get to the very end of it, and there's just like a crashed spaceship. You get the stab out of it, and I'm like, that's
bizarre.
This is really bizarre, and I wish they had more of these, because like, now I've got this cool.
It's probably not a great idea to have entire skills be secret in a game where you have like one move mostly.
Yeah,
it's like we need that variety. Like the game, I was like 4 episodes in, and I'm like frustratingly bored with this game already until I got the gun, and I'm like, oh, now I can sometimes do a GTFO explosion. Like this is why do we go for like 3 hours without this?
It's definitely one of those where like the game Thunder Lotus kind of did the same thing with Jotun, where it's like, it's this really cool game, really beautiful, has some like really good ideas, but because the developers aren't normal people or something, they made like some questionable design decisions, stuck to it really hard, and ended up shooting themselves very hard in the foot as a result of it. Because like, I heard glowing praise from Jotun from a lot of sources, but there is always like this one thing. I've never played Jotun, and nobody ever specified what that one thing was.
People usually say that with Jotun that like it's so grand and epic, and the art's so beautiful, and the game's kind of shit is usually the consensus. And I'm still waiting to try it. They got better at like at making the gameplay more fun. Like the movement feels good. The combat, well, like limited. It feels nice to like roll around and stab stuff, and like I can get around the lack of combos. But the fact that its solution to combat is just to send hordes at you, it sucks. But it gets frustrating because you have moments where you fight the jetpack dude, and he like every few seconds he's going to dash you and do an X-shaped like laser swipe at that specific location, so you need to dodge out of the way. And you're like, okay, cool, like we have a combat cycle now. And then the game's like, how about 70 of them? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, oh, now your stats fight the fight for you instead, because you can't dodge those attacks. Like, there's too much shit happening at once. and that's just kind of unfortunate.
But
meanwhile, the boss fights are the opposite. They're genuine boss fights where you're carefully controlling your character and going after specific objectives and like platforming around, and like you have to, like that's where the game shines. But there's like 4.
Yeah, there are 3 regular bosses, and then 2 alternate endgame bosses. So depending on whether you go with Embrace or Resist, because like the whole game is Resist or Embrace. Do you go like the bad route?
The game has the Bioshock dynamic with little sisters.
Yeah. And so the final boss is either one or the other, kind of based on which direction you went with. And then there's also the shitty neutral ending, which is you didn't commit to it, which you get like a partial version of one of the bosses. Humorously, though, it's also the only one with an actual cutscene at the very end of the game. I watched all of them the other night, and I'm like, wait a second. If I got neutral, I would have gotten an animated cutscene as opposed to this. I mean, all of them were animated, but this was one that actually showed like the character's face and had some kind of implication of, character out of the main character. Yeah, it was odd.
Which is essentially the ending you get for not finding everything.
Yeah, for being lazy. But so the bosses are really cool. Have you fought Dominion yet or no?
I fought the first 2 bosses, so bottom and left.
Yeah.
They're just real neat.
Yeah, like
you're
really
carefully avoiding, like there's a bunch of telegraphed attacks you're avoiding. You're doing like you're doing real-time platforming around, and there's some platforming gimmicks built into the fights, especially the one that has like anti-grav platforms shooting around from the epicness of his like slamming the ground, and you're trying to attack these 3 or so crystals that are around their body that each have their own health bars, and as you beat them down, super attacks happen and the fight escalates and things like that. It's all really cool except for the part where when the camera zooms out, your character is a tiny little penny on the screen, and then it starts shaking.
It makes it kind of hard. The second boss was definitely rougher in terms of like...
I'm like, I can almost see my character. Oh, now the screen's shaking. I can't see my character.
I definitely just gave up on strategy for the second boss. And I'm like, I'm just going to try and get myself in position and just wail on them as much as I can. But so for the third boss, it's actually it's a smaller, more mobile boss, more or less. Yeah. And not to spoil much, it gets like really mobile at one point, and I couldn't figure out the pattern. So effectively, I'm like trying to chase the crystal, not realizing that like there's something else I needed to be doing. And so I'm just getting beaten on, and I'm making like really angry, panicked noises, and Shell's like next to me, just being like,
I do my little whimper noise.
Yeah. Like, don't be like that, because I sound distressed, and I kind of was, because it was super frustrating. And so I finished recording, and she turns to me and she's like, "Never do that again." And I'm like, "What?"
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
No, it's like, imagine if you're like sitting in the same room as someone who's screaming. I mean, I suppose you had your roommates.
Yeah, I don't have to imagine crap. I have people that are raging against games constantly. Also, I've recorded like angry games with Andrew. I'm playing Dark Souls with Andrew right now. So I'm super familiar with people getting mad at games, but I don't think I need to recoil or be afraid or anything.
Well, you're also not madly in love with Andrew. I mean, it could be, and that's totally okay. Yeah.
No, it's just Shell is afraid of emotions. It's fine.
Yeah.
What? I used to be. And I was like, when I wanted to be a Vulcan in middle school.
It is a nicely short game, though. Like, for all of the complaints I can muster at it, I'd still beat it within 10 hours, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more. I should probably uninstall it. I was originally going to say, like, hey, I might play through this New Game Plus, and then I watched the last cutscene, and I was just like, nah, never mind, it's not worth it.
Well, it's just the realization that if you played it again, you're like, this will be the same game.
Well, I actually looked it up, and there is... I would have the ability to just cheat up all of my stats again. I was like, if I play through this again, I'm just going to go at it with, like, max stats.
Which means you can just go straight for the bosses.
Yeah, more or less. One of the things is, like, I want to say this is actually kind of a serious misstep is, they have these, like, 5-6-ish bosses, and they did the whole resist or embrace thing. And if you're going to have, like, this really short, small game, that's main feature is the bosses, you don't want to make people play through it twice just to have that experience. It's like if
the strongest thing's the boss, and you have to beat the game again to get one of the only other bosses because your main playthrough only has 4.
Like, imagine if you had to...
The other guys don't count.
Imagine if you had to start over Demon Souls to play any of the other areas.
Just one zone at a time, just keep restarting the game.
Yeah, like... I think that... I guess it wouldn't probably matter so much, because then it would probably be balanced differently, but like...
I mean, Demon Souls kind of is balanced that way, because you can... once you beat the Phalanx Demon at the beginning of the game, you can just go into any of the worlds immediately and play them in whatever order you feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I don't know, it just kind of sucks, because they also have, like, wholly different upgrade trees. If you corrupt or you destroy the Elder Shards, like if you use them or not. Because, like, you get a flame sword, and I think your HP bar turns weird, and
that was
all
a surprise
sorts of
for me, is when I started, I wasn't corrupting, I was destroying the shards, and so I was doing the pure route, and I was surprised to find, like, oh, I do get weird bonus skill trees anyway. It's almost like it's not the sacrifice that it's framed as being. Like, you're gonna sacrifice this power to resist the Cthulhu monsters, and it's like, yeah, but you just get other powers. It's the dichotomy that's raised by, like, Infamous.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, it just feels like a bad idea for an indie developer, like, for a small game to go with that.
Yeah.
Because, like, you already have so little game. Why cut it down the middle? I don't know. That's just me.
I just wish the game had a bigger pool to draw from. As a roguelite that's, like, all about randomly sectioning chunks of map together, it's not very good at it because there aren't enough rooms. So, like, in one run, in my last recording, I found the same run in the left region, which I found the same room 3 times in one session, and not in one session, one life. Like, I hadn't died yet, or regenerated it. It's that one room where there's a secret treasure, and there's a vertical beam shooting down next to the secret treasure. And so what you need to do is that it's a vertical chasm, so you need to jump through the vertical beam, slide down the wall for a while, then jump back through the vertical beam towards the treasure once you get to that point. I found that same room 3 times in one run, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, I just did this platforming puzzle twice. Like, there should be more rooms in this game that's about randomly matching together rooms.
So later on, you actually get the ability to have a treasure radar that shows you where everything is.
Yeah, I saw that on the tree.
Like on the map. It's actually super helpful because there are special like protected treasures that if you hit them, you have to, like, do a super horde and fight off, like, a mini boss and stuff.
Which is, like, actually the most reliable way to farm the perks.
Yeah. And so you find out that those are actually in fixed locations on the map at all times. They never change.
They also seem to respawn infinitely as long as you just, like,
they do.
regenerate the map again, which seems really abusable, actually, as far as farmable stuff goes.
Yep, that's part of how I made so much, how many shards. But, like, actually, I liked it and I didn't like it because it made the runs more predictable and I could kind of, like, autopilot through. But at the same time, I was just like, at this point, if you're going to have, like, this lack of variety, just make it specifically designed. Because, like, Hollow Knight was such a joy to play, and I mean, they're still expanding onto it, which is amazing.
Yeah, didn't we get Hollow Knight shirts?
Yeah, we did. Shell says as she, like, shows off hers.
It's just, I think the disappointment in this game comes from the idea of it being, the premise is to be like a Metroidvania type game, but inherently a core thing you can't remove from Metroidvania is exploration.
Yeah.
And there's not really exploration to be done. Like, you don't defeat this game by exploring it. You, like, there's, like, one landmark in each zone, and then, like, the 4 boss chambers, and, like, that's, like, the main locations, and everything else is just shuffling random generic hallways around. You defeat the game by grinding. Because you ultimately just need to, if you have enough experience, you can obliterate everything, and if you don't have enough experience, it will just tear you apart. And some of that, I think, comes from the fact that the game might have been forced to be designed better if they didn't have the armor stat.
Yeah.
Because the armor stat is a like it's something you're buying as you go through the tree that literally removes a percentage of damage from all attacks that happen to you.
The interesting thing is the armor stat is a lie. It doesn't actually do that. Because I had 74 armor by the time I beat the game, and I could go up to 94, I think. No, I could go higher than that. And what I ended up finding out is, no, you still take a ton of damage from that last boss, regardless of how high your armor is. So I just kind of combated that with lifesteal and a massive
they do
health
give you
bar.
A definition of for armor that doesn't make sense. Because they do straight up tell you it removes 2% of damage per point, but like you can get more than 50 armor, which should mean that you have infinite damage reduction, basically, because it's over. Because that's like I remove 110% of damage, which is that's all of it. But I definitely would equip a skill that was like this. It does this cool thing, but removes 20 armor from your character, and I felt it hard.
Yeah. Well, like I had that skill, and I just ate the difference because it was worth it.
But as a different, but like what happens as a result is that the game has this exponential curve to how much damage reduction you have, which means that it has an exponential curve to how much damage the enemies do, which means that the entire game gets so grind dependent that it causes all the problems we talked about, where like your actual input doesn't matter as much as just where you are on that specific curve. Which looks like the graph of like a limit, basically, where it just shoots up exponentially, and you just have to be on the right part of the curve for that part of the game, or you're going to just get crushed. And that's just kind of a bummer. Because it's not a game where you explore, and it's not a game where you really outsmart your enemies. It's kind of just a game where you kind of busy work through it until you get to the boss fights where you think again.
So, kind of on the flip side, I had asked you before Sundered, because I was actually surprised that you were playing Sundered instead of Immortal Planet, seeing as Immortal Planet's a Souls-like. And interestingly enough, Immortal Planet is actually kind of the complete reverse. It's a game with a leveling system that actually doesn't matter. Like, every point that you put into damage only increases your damage by 1, and when you already do 100 damage, 10 points in damage really doesn't net that much, and it takes forever to grind. And so I actually had to end that series because I'm not a good enough player to deal with it, and I can't overgrind it because it took so long and it was so painful to do. And so, like, I understand, like, not I understand.
Oh, yeah, your last
like,
episode's called Apply Face to Wall.
So, effectively, the boss that I was fighting, he attacks you as soon as you get off, like, a power lift before you can move. And so half the time he'd stun lock me on a laser grid and just kill me. So it's just like, with like Souls bosses, he was the Capra Demon. He was just straight up the Capra Demon.
Yeah, it just jumps on you.
Yeah, but like imagine if the Capra Demon had fire and lasers and the entire arena was on fire. Like, it's actually a really well designed game, and it has some like really smart mechanics, but like, good lord, I really wish I could overgrind it just so I could have that edge, because I do not have the time or the patience to not suck at that game.
Yeah, as a surprise,
Bloodborne.
I put up to a vote because there was just too many games to pick from, and I had to pick some because I stick to the schedule of like, no, I'm doing this many playthroughs at once, and they're going to be finished. Then we start new things, as opposed to starting everything the moment they launch and then figuring out which ones get extra episodes or which ones just die after 3 or something like that. Is that like, I just had to put up a vote because there was too many at once. Like, there was Pyre, Surge, Immortal Planet, and Sundered, and so I just like, tell me which one you guys want, and surprisingly, they voted for both of the games that weren't Souls-likes.
Yeah.
So no Surge and no Immortal Planet yet, and maybe I'll get around to them later, but I had to prioritize, and people wanted Pyre and Sundered.
I would still say that Surge is probably worth the effort, because, like, for all of my complaints about it early on, it actually did turn out to be quite the nice experience. But, I don't know. Immortal Planet just annoys me at this point, which sucks, because, like, the developers were super nice and, like, kind of holding my hand through things, and I'm just like, I can't.
Were they watching you on the stream? So you have that weird like, pressure of like, they're watching me while I play it. What do I say?
Yeah. And like, I didn't want to say anything negative, and I still don't, because like, it's this beautiful game, and it is the primary reference material for Grave of Man Season 2.
What?
Yeah. Like, not gameplay wise, but visually.
Sorry.
not writing, not anything. Just like the artist has this wonderful kind of
because the whole game's an isometric vector art game.
Yeah.
Wait, am I getting this mixed up with another game?
Here,
The Surge versus
Immortal Planet.
Oh, Immortal Planet.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was imagining The Surge and how it was like a bunch of grungy exosuit guys, and I'm like,
And so, like, I'm actually just routinely going back to look at the artwork that their artist did for this game, because it's like, this is actually pretty close to what I'd love to do.
I see.
For a lot of things.
And, you were getting crushed by this guy. I'm watching it now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I fought him so many times, and the thing is, like, unlike Dark Souls, where you just have your Estus, this is like Bloodborne, where you have, like, a limited supply of healing items, and you can go farm for more. But unlike Bloodborne, you can't carry a supply of 20 with you. You have to go farm for it, and every time you die, you're set back to 1. And you could actually increase, like, the amount that you have a little bit more than that. But, so every time I had to go fight the boss, I'd have to play through a level just so I'd have enough healing to maybe have a chance.
What's happening here? Oh, he has 4 health bars. I'm like, you're destroying this guy. What's the problem? I was like, wait, you totally killed this guy just now. And then I saw another health bar pop up. I'm like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I just learned something about this game.
Every time you take off one of those health bars, he gets a new move. Or he gets faster or something like that. So he starts shooting lasers, or he leaves these like laser traps behind that stay there until you get near to them.
Which, when you're doing that Furi playthrough of difficulty, huh?
Fuck that.
I just said difficulty playthrough of difficulty.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
When you're doing that Furi playthrough, Wander.
I am never touching that game ever again, and I regret I ever touched it to begin with.
I thought we played through all of Furi.
I don't think I actually ever put the episodes up. I think I put up like 2 or 3.
We played them all, though.
And the hate comments were so bad that I wanted nothing to do with it. Also, we got to the last boss, that like face, like after you call in the spaceship and find out that Furi is like...
And we couldn't beat it, right?
I might have been able to, but it's so not worth my time, especially after like the level of hate and vitriol that I was getting. I was just like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna go play like No Man's Sky and just accept that people hate me and everything I stand for.
Anger, anger, anger.
Yeah, I don't know how I deal with
I don't know if you know the story here or not, Bird. Do you?
What's up?
Do you know the story about what happened with Furi?
No, I don't know the story of what happened with Furi.
So Wander was having too much trouble with it, so he switched to the other mode. But the other mode that was there was clearly like a baby mode made for babies. Like it was not an incremental decrease in difficulty. It's like a non-feature insulting mode.
It's like if you turn Dark Souls on easy mode and you could one-shot Smo.
Like I got an episode out of every I got an entire episode out of every boss fight when I did my series on that. Wander would walk into an area, watch, and like the cutscenes in the walk between fights, well, it's longer than the fights because he would just like obliterate them in seconds without even slightly getting any sort of experience out of it at all. Like it was just like, oh, that one's green, I guess he's dead. Like that's the observation to be made, is that one was green, as opposed to like all of his crazy aquatic moves or like splitting attacks, and like because like just none of it happens. They went from being 8-round fights to being like 2-round fights where each round would be over in 3 seconds. It's like it was a nightmare.
This game has a 50% rating on Game Rankings. Really? Got a 6.5 on IGN, a 5 out of 10 from Game Informer, a 3 out of 10 from Eurogamer, a 61 out of 100 on PC Gamer.
It's got
Furi got told to fuck off by the press.
It's got very positive. It's at 92%.
I don't think you're looking at the same game.
I'm looking at Furi video game.
Furi, not Fury.
Yeah, Furi has 76.72 game rating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The game I was looking at
was say, like, this game had like a couple negative reviews.
You're thinking of the mass murderer guy just walking around and shooting people.
No, that's Hatred. This is Furi, which is a player versus player competitive online RPG and massive multiplayer online role-playing game.
No,
released in 2007.
Furi spelled with an I is a boss rush isometric game from the artist that made Afro Samurai.
Yeah. And so,
Furi
is definitely a game made for certain kinds of people, but it wasn't me.
The definition of niche.
And so, like, when I tried turning it down to easy mode, it did a couple of things. One, it made the game ridiculously easy. It also would not let me go back up to, like, the higher difficulty, so I could, like, maybe try it again. It's like, nope, you have to start the entire game over again. Even though, like, you're only on the third boss and you just turned it down. And I'm like, this is bullshit, because, like, there's no middle grade difficulty for normal people. So it's niche and niche only, and if you want to
beat Fury difficulty, and you find out that was the middle grade difficulty, because then Furious unlocks.
Yeah,
so you have to play through the game again.
Because there's an even harder difficulty. So playing it on different difficulty, playing it again on harder difficulty. I will never endorse the easy mode because it was a nightmare. It was serious. It sounded like some sort of like shitty mandate,
patronizing you.
Not even that. It sounds like it was mandated by someone. Like, you have to put an easy mode in this, and like, fuck, we'll put 5 minutes of effort into it. Because, like, they give you a ton of health, and the enemy, like, no health. And then they make you just fight, like, the 2 easiest turns that the enemy has. And it's like, it's just patronizing and insulting, and sounds like somebody mandated it to be there, and so they had to put it in or something. But in Furious mode, they just add more different moves for the enemies, so it's just, like, the game keeps adding content.
But so you get to we got to the final boss in the easiest difficulty after breezing through everything. And then it's back to what kind of was closer to the regular difficulty-ish. And so it's like, I was vastly underprepared for anything that the game was going to throw at me. And I was just like, this just isn't worth playing anymore.
Yeah, the easy difficulty had so little effort put into that they were literally using phases from the harder difficulty. And the last boss doesn't have any, like, hand-holdy, like, easy phases. So it literally doesn't have a difficulty curve on easy. It's just a weird, like, it's like you're playing a glitched version of a game that keeps skipping around, basically. Like, for background, though, like, you know Final Fantasy X, Bird? Did you play that?
Yes.
You know how you keep fighting Seymour over and over again, and it keeps getting more badass over and over again, and it keeps morphing and just out of pure rage of needing to defeat you?
This is at the very, very end of the game you're talking about, right?
Well, you fight Seymour like 5 times over the course of the game, I think.
Right, you do.
Yeah. So that's what every boss
I don't remember him
is.
Transforming until towards the end, though, right?
He would always change in some way, and it kept getting more...
he was never the same boss fight twice.
It was gradually getting more dramatic. But just that idea, at least. Or even like Dragon Ball Z fights of like the 3 phase, like Boo, Frieza, Cell fights, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Every single boss in Fury is that.
Oh.
So you defeat so it's like you're playing a fighting game against a boss like that, where every time you drain their health bar then regenerates, but it doesn't just heal them, it actually enters a new round where actually both of your health bars regenerate, and they lose a little pip that represents how many health bars they have. That's essentially the counter of how many rounds you have to win against them, but every round they become a slightly different boss fight. So it's like evolving as it goes. And it's actually a really cool system where you essentially have 3 attempts to make against each phase of their boss fight, because you have 3 lives, but if you defeat one of their lives, you get all of your lives back. So you can fail up to 3 times versus each phase of the boss fight until you get sent back to the beginning of the full boss fight again and start again. But like it's such a crazy escalation, bizarre game, and the hype levels get crazy, and some of the bullet hell sections maybe want to pull my just give up at being able to see things again.
Seymour Guado was a really fucking bad villain. He had stupid hands. He had stupid tattoos. He had stupid hair. He had stupid lines. He had stupid voice actor. He was a horrible villain, man. Final Fantasy X was a great game in a lot of ways
for reasons.
But like Seymour is like by far one of the worst video game villains I think I've ever had the displeasure of facing off against.
Which is weird. I found him incredibly compelling as a kid. I hated the shit out of Seymour and everything he stood for.
Do you still think he's good, or is this like
I don't know?
Remember?
I played it in college, and admittedly, in college, I was looking at the entire game from a much more like jaded opinion to begin with. But
oh, sorry, slipping my chat. Keep going.
No, share. If you're gonna laugh that hard, you're sharing.
I can't share this one.
You didn't. I believe you laughed inappropriately at the phrase "Seymour's voice makes gay people sound straight."
Yes, that's why I was laughing.
Yeah, that's why you didn't want to say it out loud.
Yes, that's why I didn't want to say it.
Enjoy, everybody. Bird laughed at that.
I wasn't going to say it. It was such a surprising sentence.
But I have all of your chats open.
I wish you didn't.
And I can dig the hole for you.
Seymour had kind of a Kafka feel to me. Like, he wasn't quite there, but he had like a much more Kafka-esque feel compared to practically every other JRPG villain I had run into so far. And so, like, kind of in this weird vacuum, Seymour comes off as actually kind of decent, whereas I'm trying to think of like a JRPG I've played recently where the villain just fell flat. I haven't played enough JRPGs. I guess Tales of Zestiria, all of the villains just felt kind of boring. I couldn't even tell if there were any for a while. And
the
then
villain was the concept of evil, essentially.
Yeah. So, like, the idea of Seymour being this just, like, creepy, like, power-mad priest. Maybe? I don't know. He was just...
He had dumb hands.
He did. He had claw hands, and he had a weird, like, spike hair that made no sense. His hair does not make sense even a little bit. I think it's really hard to figure out.
I think I just I could understand his motivations. Oh yeah, here's a good example.
Seymour does not have anime hair. Seymour has Yu-Gi-Oh hair.
Yeah, he just has Yu-Gi-Oh hair.
It's literally just someone drew a shape and called it hair, but hair can't do that.
I've never seen somebody wear a shirt that only has sleeves and a back, though. I don't know how you have a shirt that has no front part.
Yeah,
he really wanted to show off his manscaping.
Yeah, he constantly had an exposed entire front side somehow, but he had giant like Gangnam style pants for his arms, basically, and his hair was bat wings.
now Wander's showing me an image of this.
I forgot. Shell's. We played like 4 hours of. We played 4 hours of Final Fantasy X a couple years ago, but we never actually got to meet Seymour, so Shell never really got the opportunity to see the magic that was Seymour.
I genuinely can't tell you if I like a single Final Fantasy story or characters. Because the only one I latch onto is like, I think I liked 10 when I was 20 years younger, and I haven't touched it since, so maybe it's bullshit too.
I think my issue with the Final Fantasy series, from what little I've seen, is that there's a lot of melodrama going on.
Yeah, it's mostly melodrama.
Yeah.
Like soap opera.
Melodrama that often doesn't make sense.
I want to say Final Fantasy VI was probably where the writing kind of peaked, and then it started dropping down. But even then, it's kind of hard to say, because they didn't have much for cutscenes, and it was kind of
10 was really good.
It wasn't.
I mean, not 10. I'm sorry. I meant to say 7.
I don't
10
know.
was not really good. Well, 10 was okay.
A lot of people seem to latch on to specifically 6 and 9.
Yeah.
6 was very, very good. 9 was decent.
I never played 9,
so
good. I can't talk about 9. I know with 7, I got so lost, because they were throwing around terms left and right, and there was the
translation
whole,
of 7 sucked.
Yeah, the translation sucked. Okay, spoilers for Final Fantasy VII for a bit. The, like, Zack amnesia rigmarole flashbacks in, like...
Yeah. That was pretty bad.
Sephiroth's
pretty bad.
Backstory. Those didn't make sense until I played Crisis Core. And then that kind of all fell in, and I'm like, oh...
The Zack
they should have fit that in better.
The Zack stuff was really complicated and very poorly localized. So for most people, they found the Zack stuff to be actually incredibly confusing and hard to understand. I'm surprised we weren't able to understand the Sephiroth backstory, because I thought that was pretty straightforward, though.
I think I got really hooked up on, why is there this weird, gross pod thing? Because I couldn't...
Genova?
I don't know. There was just like this like jump where it's just like, okay, so here's Soldier, It was called Soldier.
Oh,
right?
you're talking about like the weird thing that you find in the mountains that like you open up a pod and like a wolf falls out. That's like a wolf man.
I have an image to share.
I've never been able to figure out what the hell that cutscene was about.
That I think that was supposed to be like Sephiroth's mother, like the.
No, that's not Genova.
Oh,
like you're talking. I don't. There's like this pod thing that you open up, and there's like a weird hairy dude guy. What? What the hell is this, Keith?
That's the cosplay of the Sephiroth hair, of the Seymour hair, which is impossible to cosplay, so it's not even close.
Well,
it doesn't
what
even
happens
look cool.
Well, so when people have to do crazy hair like that, you actually have to have like carved foam and other materials underneath. You have to like layer the hair on. Wait. Ew. That's terrible. And then what they do is they put a lot of like gels or something to like plasticize the hair over the form, but then it looks stiff and it obviously doesn't flow. So yeah.
For me, for Final Fantasy X, part of becoming an adult and growing up and analyzing stories more was realizing that Wakka's really racist.
Yeah.
He spends the entire game talking about dirty owl beds, and I'm like, this just... Whoa!
Yeah, he's pretty...
I kind of don't like this guy anymore.
And what are owl beds?
They're the vaguely Middle Eastern people.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it who Riku is? Isn't Riku an owl bed?
Yes.
And it's like, wow, you just take, like, he just, like, before you even meet Albeds, I think, even, like, on his own island, separate from all the
everybody hates Albeds because
he just keeps
they're the only ones
shots.
that have technology.
Everyone
else doesn't have technology.
Yeah, so he doesn't like Albeds because they're the reason why Sin is still going around.
All them Albeds still
that's what
taking
they
our
say,
jobs.
but it's also not true. Sin's going around because Sin's a dick.
Yeah.
Not because of technology.
Yeah, blaming the Albeds for that is like it's like on the same level of like how in Castlevania they blame those random priests for all of their woes and want to execute them all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nope, you're just stupid and hateful, as it turns out. That's the story.
All right, so I want to get a chance to talk about the stuff that I played last week.
We have not let Bird soapbox at all, so let's... This is now the final 20 minutes of nothing but Bird.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I had no idea what to say about Sundered, and you guys were getting into it, so I just wanted to let you have your conversation.
We talked about Sundered for too long.
Or even see them, so...
So I played 2 games. I'll start with Tacoma, I think. So that was a really, really cool experience. It's by the people that made Gone Home. So they made another walking simulator, basically. And this one was really, really funky. I didn't play Gone Home or anything like that. Did any of you guys? Or
no.
Anyone?
It's on my very big spreadsheet.
It's a game where you walk around to like a house and like there's like a story and you just discover the stories you play it. I literally don't know any more details about it than that.
It's from some of the people that worked on BioShock, so it was people that were following up on that thread of environmental storytelling. Because BioShock was a game where you would find... You were walking around a ruined, obliterated society, and you like walk into a particular like bedroom, and there's like the bloody corpse of a woman, and there's like a audio log under her bed that she recorded right before she died, and her room's full of all these details that explain her backstory and stuff like that. And so like it's that continued exploration of that storytelling style, which was also used in like Prey, but it was entirely in a game where you just walk around and interact with objects to look around. So it's very similar like follow-up games like What Remains of Edith Finch and so on.
So Tacoma is a little more obvious with a lot of its storytelling in that literally the entire game is you watching cutscenes, which isn't really a bad thing, but I will basically say that like overall Tacoma is like a really, really bad game, but like a really fun experience, and I think that people should play it anyway. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it's cool. It's a really fun experience. What it is it takes place on a space station, and you don't really know why you're there. You kind of are given like this vague quest of like you need to go on to the space station to find a AI and like basically take out its brain, which is the hard drive, and like take it back to another location. But to do that, you need to like go through these security systems, and here's a device that unlocks the security systems automatically. Your job is just to go there, let the security device do its thing, and then after a couple hours, you come back, you pick up the hard drive, and you leave. And that premise, like, they really managed to make it brilliant because you're on the space station and you plug in the device and it says like, okay, it's going to be about 30 minutes before this door opens up. So you just start walking around because you have nothing else to do. Mm-hmm. You just start walking around and then you discover like all the little details of the people that were on the space station before you got there, and you discover like why they aren't there anymore, what happened to them and stuff like that. And it's paced really well. The environment's really cool. The story's great. The characters are great. It's really pretty. It's also very, very, very detailed. Like, there was this one office I walked into, and it had a schedule for every character for an entire month. And it had, like, the times in the rooms that all these meetings happened in and stuff like that. And I was just looking at it. It was like, wow, the writers really poured every single detail into this game that they could. And it's just like that all over the place. You pick up an object and it's like, say it's a food wrapper and it has an ingredients list and a calories list and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really cool experience. But ultimately, your interactions are they're pretty limited. What you can do is you trigger these cutscenes, and then you can go up to the characters as they're talking to each other in the cutscene, and they're like holographic like glitches, basically, that like their memory is implanted into the area effectively as like a glitch. Mm-hmm. And you have a device that you can use to interact with the space station that everyone used, so you can kind of recover these fragmented memories of these people as they were leaving the space station for the reasons that they had to do so. And you can like walk around during these cutscenes as they're playing out, and you can interact with them to get even more information about like their lives, and you can read their old emails that they sent to each other and stuff like that. And that's basically the entire game. It's just you like waiting for your device to do something while you watch cutscenes and like discover secrets about the world. It's almost like if you took a Myst game, if you took all the puzzles out of a Myst game. Mm-hmm. It kind of has a very similar. It has a pretty similar feel to the narrative, and it's also really short. And if you watched me play it, then you basically have no reason to play it on your own. But if you haven't watched me play it, then you get a choice. You can either watch it play
Birdcatcher Games,
or you can play it yourself.
YouTube.com/Birdcatcher plays game. Come watch, need views. You with a choice.
No, it's really great. I know lots of people, even after they watched me play it, did say that they wanted to throw money at it anyway because it was such a fun experience.
This presents with a choice.
I wonder if people will manage to get really angry at this one too.
I don't see how they possibly could.
I feel like after Life is Strange and Telltale and stuff like that, people have become desensitized to walking simulators. I was going to say,
walking simulators are here to stay. I don't think you can rage at them anymore.
I think there will be people that will be inherently shitty about this regardless.
Yeah, probably.
And those are kind of the people that can't be... Their opinions are never going to change anyway, so like, who gives a shit?
I mean, isn't it just sort of like a marginally interactive narrative as opposed to a game where you have narrative interspersed with a specific type of gameplay?
Effectively, yeah. That's pretty much it.
It's largely similar to that space station you guys played. The space game you guys played where you talk to an AI sometimes, but mostly we're just walking around an environment.
Zero.
Yeah, Event Zero or Firewatch and so on.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Event Zero, I would say, but the story is completely 100% different.
Yeah,
and the cool thing about Tacoma is that it's set. The cool thing about Tacoma is that it's set in the near future. It's set in 2088. That's ostensibly potentially within our lifetimes, which is kind of a weird thing to think about.
If we live into our 90s.
But
I'm looking forward to playing it pretty soon, just because I really like sci-fi stories for
you'll think this one's probably
short indie companies.
I don't think you'll like it. Short indie games. I don't think you'll like it very much, Keith. But I mean, play it and let me know. I guess it seems it's as far as the story is concerned.
To dissuade him, so yours is the only playthrough for me.
Part of me just wants to get to play the movie Sunshine.
As far as the story is concerned, you probably won't like it, but because it's not going to go into the world enough for you to really enjoy it, I think, Keith.
Oh yeah, but I don't do sci-fi for its world most of the time. It's just the setting is a good place to set to as a backdrop for most stories.
Oh well, then maybe you will like it because it's
it's
a pretty fun story. Yeah. But it does kind of set up the like what its vision for the near future is, and it's really kind of cool because it talks about how like these companies that exist today, what their power is like, and how they've grown in the future. Where it talks about like Carnival cruises in space, so it's like you can take a Carnival cruise to Jupiter, for example, or how Hilton has space hotels in the future, or how Amazon has a university that one of the characters went to. That was a little weird. That one hit a little close to home. I didn't like that part so much.
Hey, bird.
What?
Play Soma.
I should.
Play Soma.
I got other things to play, though.
Yeah, but
how much time do I have left?
What if you played Soma?
I have 10 minutes. Okay, I used 10 of my 20 minutes of Bird Soapbox Hour. So let's, if you have any questions about Tacoma, like, you can ask them real quick, I guess. But I gotta move on to talk about the other thing I've been playing.
Just go for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna play it myself.
Okay. Yeah, go play Tacoma. Buy Tacoma. It's cool. Keith, play it so that we can talk about our experiences and our opinions on it.
We could do a Tacoma spoiler cast, except we've never recorded any of the other ones we talked about, so probably not.
Probably. So the other game I've been playing is called West of Loathing, and that one's interesting. It's first off, it's a really easy game. It's I guess it's like a turn-based RPG, kind of, but
populated by stick figures.
Populated by stick figures, and
it's a black and white game that apparently has a colorblind mode.
It does have a colorblind mode. It's so funny. So, it was created by the same people that made a MMO called Kingdom of Loathing, which came out when I was in middle school. And it was like also black and white and stick figures, and also very
about
easy.
Kingdom of Loathing on the podcast.
There was
before.
an MMO that was black and white with stick figures.
I've heard one of you guys bring it up before, and
it was probably me.
No idea.
It was probably Bird.
It was made by Kingdom. It was made by the same people that made Kingdom of Loathing, which was a really, really funny game. And I played it during middle school, which like those are the years where your sense of humor starts to really take shape. I think, like early middle school, 5th or 6th grade.
So we have this game to blame for you in your current incarnation.
You really can, man. You really can.
This game inflicted you upon us.
I'm playing West of Loathing, and I'm doing my normal commentary style where something happens, and then I'll like riff on it a little bit or make fun of the thing that just happened, which Wander's seeing a lot of in Dying Light. So it'll set up a joke basically, and I will like make fun of it and then read the next line, and the next line will be the thing that I said to make fun of it, because I played the game that inspired my sense of humor in a lot of ways. Like, it's made by the same people. So there have been times where I'll make fun of it, and then the next line will be exactly what I just said. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so
one of the buildings in the town's called a horsery.
Yeah, it's called a BS horsery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just off center.
No, it's called the BS horsery.
Petting cemetery.
There is a petting cemetery. I just entered a section called the Davetary, which is a cemetery exclusively for people named Dave. And all of the headstones are celebrities, where it's just like Dave D, and like there's an epitaph that tells you who the celebrity is that the cemetery was for. And it's so funny. One of the locations that I visited was literally a pile of shit. and I had a shovel, so I kept shoveling the pile. I kept shoveling the pile, and it kept giving me experience points for doing it. And I got like 2 levels up for sitting on a screen, shoveling up a pile of poo. It's just so funny. Like, and nobody would play this game if it weren't for people like that knew of Kingdom of Loathing and were like, "Oh God, you have to play this."
Yeah, and this game's on my list now, but it only got there from word of mouth because otherwise it was just a game where I'm like, that looks like every game I skip over.
Because it's a stick figure game for $10 on Steam, greenlight, and you're like, nope, I'm not playing that shit.
But then there's word of mouth, and like it's in Total Biscuit's curator collection and stuff like that.
I think I've had about 7 people tell me to play West of Loathing, and I'm like,
and all of them are your fault.
Well, yeah, so like what happened, no, this is before Bert even played it. Like, the game was actually not even out yet, and like I got a comment being like, you should play West of Loathing when it comes out, and I was like, are you joking? Like, one, I'm super busy, so probably no. And then Bert was like, I'm taking the night off to play West of Loathing, and I'm like, what the hell? So maybe I should actually play West of I don't know.
Everywhere you looked, you would just see the name over and over again, like it's following you.
It's so the writing makes up for the experience so much because the sense of humor is very unique, and what it does is it plays off of like absurdity and like normalcy and like your expectations constantly. So one of the first things you interact with in the game is a haystack, and in it you find a needle, and that's just the lockpicking item in the game. So every time you need a lockpick, you go up to a haystack to find a needle in it. And it's just like little moments like that repeated all throughout the game, which like you can't help but like just smile. And then also there's bigger moments that are also really, really funny. And I don't want to spoil the jokes, because if you spoil the jokes, then there's nothing to the game.
Is this going to be a thing now where each of us one by one encounters a game that is just their sense of humor?
Yeah. But this is a very, very special experience to me. Oh no.
We'll never find it.
Bird Shell told a joke.
She did tell a joke. It was a very meta joke.
It's like, for me, that was basically Zenith. That was... It genuinely made me laugh multiple times, and I'm not used to video games doing that, but Zenith kept making me laugh, while also having a good story, while just being the worst video game. It's just a bad game. But like, I still point at that sometimes. I'm like, look at that weird-ass, well-written game that everyone's going to ignore.
Yep, so that's my other spiel, I guess. West of Loathing is great. Tacoma was also pretty great, and I'm not playing the same games that like you guys are, but there's been some really fun releases lately that I've stumbled upon that I'm really enjoying.
I have a terrifying backlog, and it scares me. I just put Zelda to rest finally after about 160 episodes, boy. But they added something really cool at the end, because the first expansion pack is the challenge mode, where you have to get through like 40-ish rooms back to back, and if you die, you start over. And when they send you in there, you get no items. Like, you don't have clothes or any inventory items or weapons or anything, and you have to just like Metal Gear subsistence it all by just finding everything from scratch, from food to like a stick to hit people with and everything. And it's actually like a compelling roguelite experience, except for the part where if you play it again, it'll be the same thing again. I'm like, I went on a rant during my final episode. I'm like, no, like they need to like figure out how to properly randomize this, because this well could go so deep. Because anyone who's played Breath of the Wild realizes that like the game is so mechanically dense, and it's so carefully crafted with so many options to approach every situation that like it actually has the potential to be the coolest roguelite ever made if it actually had the randomization set up. Because like, proper challenge modes and like how far can you go in this infinitely sprawling like dungeon where they keep giving you one room at a time and the only way to escape is to beat every enemy, but you can do it at your own pace because it has like functioning stealth systems and the ability to scavenge for different items to use, and you can sneak up on things and use line of sight to section off enemies, and every enemy can be dispatched like 12 different ways, and you can have, there's so many mechanics to the game that it's like ridiculously crafted. And the only problem I had with the main game was the fact that like its difficulty curve kind of sucked for a campaign, because if you were in the main campaign, and you're being completionist about finishing the open world and stuff like that, or even just doing a lot of open world stuff, like there was no difficulty curve. It was just like you basically couldn't die at some point. So like taking all those mechanics that were carefully and lovingly crafted for that amazing open world and then putting them into like a crazy randomized challenge mode that utilizes all of them would be one of the coolest gaming experiences ever made. Yep. And unfortunately, they have like 90% of that because they made a 40-room dungeon that you play in that way, and it's so tightly balanced and interesting, but it's just not quite there. The difficulty curve never quite gets there, and you kind of dread losing, because if you lose, you just start over the same floors again, and that's kind of a bummer. But it's the potential game that's like an inch away from happening is so cool.
Kind of on the reverse side, Breath of the Wild, I just wanted to say this. Breath of the Wild has like the best travel and exploration mechanics that I find myself disliking a lot of other games now, because they don't have movement that's like even close to on par. And so I'm like, what was I playing? I was playing Yonder, which is like a goofy little like Farmville-y, well, not Farmville, but like Harvest Moon-y game. Not really. But the entire premise of the game was like exploration, and you could like glide, and you can do a couple other things. And I was just like, it's just not the same. Like Breath of the Wild has blown this out of the water now, and I just don't enjoy it.
Metal Gear Solid 5 and Breath of the Wild make it really hard to look at other open world games and take them seriously.
Yeah, even like
Horizon, this year's darling, is basically just another Assassin's Creed game, but with different combat mechanics. But like its world is just as like not interesting, because at best you can pick up a few crafting materials that help you make bags. Like it's just not interesting generally. But like what's cool about an open world game is when it gives you new options for approaching stuff that are really cool. And like
when they pull the Metroidvania and actually give it
Metal Gear Solid 5 do that. Metal Gear Solid 5 was absurd, by the way. Like, its story goes off the deep end because it just runs out of game, and they literally stopped. They just didn't finish it. Like, it's just dead. But like, it's up there with Breath of the Wild with just having like crazy open world mechanics that you let everyone play each mission differently and stuff. Like that's a cool thing that doesn't happen. And I just kind of sometimes I want to play those games again instead of playing new open world games.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that probably wraps up the podcast at this point, huh?
That was that. Yeah. We done.
Anybody want to tell us a cool story?
A cool story?
It doesn't have to be cool. Never mind. I want to tell us a lame story.
You say? There's no cool in here.
I'm just trying to think of like things that have to deal with the cold.
I haven't done
So the other day, I was walking down the sidewalk, and I noticed some kids were doing drugs, and I was like, "Hey, that's bad. Let me show you something. Let me just show you what you should be doing instead." So I pulled a skateboard out of my briefcase, and I did a kickflip off of a taxi cab, and then I also slam dunked a basketball into a nearby hoop during the kickflip, and that's my cool story.
You okay?
The kids still did drugs at the end. It didn't really work out that well. Maybe I was on drugs, which informs the story. I don't know.
I'm going to kickflip these kids out of their drug habit by being sick.
I was going to tell a story about the snow fortresses we used to make out of the snow mound in the cul-de-sac down when I was a kid. And how our
summary story to tell.
Well, and how we'd have to have wars against the neighboring boys that were also trying to take our fortress. It wasn't nice.
Did you win?
Well, it was one of those weird things where the winners were the ones that didn't have to go home early. You know, like, someone's mother would, come on, kids, get back home. It's almost going to be dinner time, or the cars are going to hit you. And it's like, okay. And then my one neighbor, her chocolate lab was so adorable, Coco. She would sled down the hills with us on her belly. And it was so sweet. She would just see us sliding down, and she'd be like, I want to slide too.
Looked almost as good as it tastes.
Shell's been overheating really badly today. No surprise she's talking about winter.
No, he was talking about cool things. So
that's true.
I took the literal...
Alrighty. Well...
literal approach to cold things.
There you go. That's a story. We should have a straw poll to see which story was cooler.
I mean, your fictitious story was definitely cooler. Mine was just...
Oh, I see. You're made of bullshit. It was obviously cooler.
It involved kickflips and drugs.
And basketball.
What's a basketball? What's pit people?
What the hell is pit people?
I don't know what's happening anymore.
All right, let's do a 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.